The longship comes in on the morning tide, and you're the first man over the side. The water is cold even through your boots, and the salt of it bites at the cuts on your hands. You got hauling rope yesterday and the day before. Behind you, 40 men are dropping into the surf with shields slung across their backs and axes in their fists. Nobody on the cliff has seen you yet. Not the monks in the church. Not the shepherds on the headland. Not the women in the village laying out the morning fires. They will soon. The sun is barely up. The smoke from the hearths curls into the sky in soft gray ribbons. And you watch a moment and think, that smoke is going to look very different in an hour. You're 31, you're a herser, which is the word your people use for a raiding leader, who isn't yet a jarl, but is no longer just a carl, a freeman with a sword. 6 raids before this one, 11 men lost across those 6. Many more than 11 killed by your own hand. You have a wife at home in the long dark valley by the fjord, and 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and you haven't seen them in 2 months and you won't see them for 2 months more. You think about them sometimes, not now, not on the beach. On the beach, your mind is empty. The way the old men taught you when you were a boy. The men come up in 2 groups. You lead one. Bjorn leads the other. Bjorn is your wife's cousin, and he isn't as fast as he was 5 years ago, but he's steady, and steady is what you want in the man who watches your back. Your group goes for the church. His goes for the village. The church has the silver. The village has the people. You'll have both and be back on the longship before the sun is fully up. This is what raiding is. It's what your father did, and what his father did before him. It isn't what the Christian monks will write about you in the books they keep in their stone halls. Books they think we can't read because we don't write the way they write. We don't need to. We remember things in songs. The skalds at home will sing about this raid. If it goes well, in a year or 2, and the song will say what was true, and it will say it for 200 years. The monks will write that we're devils. They've been writing that since the day we burned Lindisfarne 37 years ago. They aren't entirely wrong. You break into a run. As the village comes into view above the cliff path, the shepherds see you. One of them drops his crook and runs toward the church bell. You're faster than him. You're always faster than them. And you catch him at the edge of the village, where the sheep pen meets the main path, and you take him down with the flat of your axe. You don't want to spend the energy on a killing blow on a shepherd. He's a boy with a stick. You leave him in the dirt with his hands over his head, and you keep going. The bell never rings. Bjorn's men are already in the village. You can hear shouts, and a woman screaming, and a horse going down somewhere off to your right. The church door is heavy oak with iron bands. You hit it with your shoulder, and your shoulder hits back. The men behind you laugh. Scarfadin, a big one, missing 2 fingers on his left hand, comes up with the axe. And you both swing together, and the lock splinters on the second blow, and the door comes open. Inside, the church is dim, and smells of incense and unwashed wool. 3 monks are at the altar, praying, not running. You've seen this many times. Some of them run. The ones who don't aren't brave, they're just frozen. They believe their God is going to save them. Their God has never saved any of them on any beach you've ever raided. You give them a moment. This is something you do that the younger men don't understand. You give them a moment because you aren't in a hurry, and the silver isn't going to walk out on its own. And sometimes a monk who's had a moment to look at you will tell you where the rest of it is hidden. The eldest monk, White Tonsure, a face that's seen 60 winters, looks at you and says something in his Christian tongue. You don't catch most of it. One word you do catch, mercy. They always say mercy. You shake your head. The monk closes his eyes. You ask him, in the rough Latin you learned from a priest you captured 3 raids ago and kept alive for a year before he died of a fever where the silver is. He doesn't answer. You ask again. He still doesn't answer. You lift your axe. The youngest monk, a boy, maybe 16, says something quickly and points to the altar. You walk past the older 2, move the cloth. There's a stone in the floor that's loose. You can see it because the boy was looking at it. You pry it up, a wooden box. You open it, 3 silver chalices, a silver cross the size of your forearm, a small bag of coins. The men cheer. The eldest monk weeps. You don't kill the monks. You never kill them all. You kill enough, so the story gets told the way you want it told. But you leave the eldest alive, because the eldest will tell other monks in other places, and the other monks will tell their lords. And the lords will know, next time, to pay tribute rather than fight. The whole point of a raid is the next raid. The whole point is making the place across the water know you're coming. Eventually, they pay you not to come. That's how the silver flows in the long run. The raid is just the seed. You walk back into the village. Bjorn has the men gathering people in the square. There are maybe 60. Mostly women and children and old men. The young men are out in the fields or the boats. They'll come back tonight to find their village burned and their wives and sisters gone. You take the strong young women and the boys old enough to row but young enough to be broken. The old you leave, the very young you leave. You aren't a monster. You have rules. The men you kill if they fight you. If they don't fight, you let them go. Most of them don't fight. Most of them have never held a weapon in their lives. You take 12, You take them by the arms, bind their wrists with leather, walk them down the cliff path toward the longship. They stumble, they cry. One of the women, a girl, maybe 19, brown hair, freckles, looks back as the village starts to burn behind her, and her mouth makes a shape that isn't quite a scream. You don't look at her face. You learned a long time ago not to look at their faces. You look at the path, the longship, the gulls circling overhead, because the gulls have already smelled the smoke and they know what it means. The longship is waiting. The boys who stayed with the boat have stowed the silver. The men come down the path in groups of 3 and 4, with goods strapped to their backs. Wool, a small barrel of mead from the village headman's storehouse, 2 iron pots, tools, a horse. The horse goes into the surf, and Bjorn leads it up the makeshift ramp the boys built. Wide-eyed and snorting, it'll be a good horse. It'll plow your fields next summer if it survives the voyage home. Many horses don't. The sea is hard on horses. You're the last on. You always are. You stand at the prow and look back. The smoke is thick now. The church is burning. The roof has gone in. You can see the cross from the steeple lying in the dirt, twisted from the heat. You watch it a moment, then you turn forward. Bjorn's at the steerboard. The men are at the oars. The women and the boys you've taken are huddled in the hold, wrists tied to the cleats. The girl with the freckles is staring at her own hands. You give the signal, oars dip. The longship pulls away. The voyage home takes 9 days. It's summer, so the seas aren't the worst they'll ever be. But the seas are never gentle in this part of the world. You sleep in the open, wrapped in oilcloth, when you sleep at all. Most nights you don't. Most nights you stand at the prow watching the horizon for other longships. There are pirates in these waters. Yes, your own people. Other Vikings, other crews. They'll take from you what you took from the village if they find you with a hold full of silver and slaves. You've fought other Norsemen at sea. It isn't really different from fighting Saxons or Franks or anyone else. Except the men you fight could be your cousins or someone who sat next to you at a winter feast. 3 years ago, off Hibernia, you killed a man in a sea fight who turned out to have been at your wedding. You didn't recognize him until you turned the body over and saw the horse kick scar on his cheek. You said nothing about it when you got home. There was nothing to say. He had been a pirate. You had been carrying silver. The sea is what it is. On the 4th day, one of the captives dies. A boy, maybe 12. He had a fever before you took him, and the fever got worse on the boat. You drop him over the side. The mother, who was taken with him, makes a sound that you'll hear in your dreams for a year. Bjorn looks at you. You shake your head. There's nothing to be done. You've lost children of your own. 2, before they reached 2 winters. So you know what she feels. Knowing what she feels doesn't change anything. The longship rows on. You make landfall in the islands on the 7th day for water. They're settled by your own people. The man who runs the small port is a cousin of your jarls. He gives you fresh water and salt fish in exchange for one of the chalices. He thinks it's a good trade. You think it's a good trade. You sleep on solid ground for the first time in a week. You wake before dawn. You sail again. You reach the fjord on the 9th day. The mountains rise on either side of the water, and the long valley opens up, green and gold in the late summer light, and your home village sits at the head of the fjord, with the smoke from the morning hearths rising the same way the smoke rose from the village you burned. Except this smoke is yours. It looks the same. It feels different. The longship slides into the harbor. Your wife is on the dock. She's been watching for 3 weeks because she knew you were due. Your 2 sons are with her, 9 and 7, and they aren't little boys anymore, in the way little boys are little. The older one is starting to grow into his shoulders. He'll be a herser himself in 15 years. He'll lead his own raids. You step off, and your wife runs to you and hits you hard in the chest. And you laugh because she always does this. The hitting before the embracing, and she embraces you afterward. And your sons are pulling at your tunic, and your daughter, who's 4, is hiding behind her mother's leg until you crouch down and she runs into your arms. The freckled girl is being unloaded onto the dock. She's staring at your daughter. Your daughter doesn't look at her. Your daughter doesn't yet understand what she's looking at. She will, in time. Your wife will tell her. Your wife knows how this works. Your wife was once the daughter of a man who came home from raids. Now she's the wife of a man who comes home from raids. In 10 years, she may be the mother of 1. The cycle is older than her great-grandmother, and it'll keep going long after your bones are in the ground. You distribute the silver that night. The jarl gets a third, the crew splits a third, you keep a third for your household. The captives are sold or kept, depending on the jarl's preference and the village's need. The freckled girl ends up in your household, working in the kitchen and the wool shed because your wife asked for her. Your wife says she has a good face. Your wife says she'll work hard. Your wife isn't cruel. The girl will be a thrall, slave, in the Old Norse, and she won't be free. But she won't be beaten unless she runs, and in time she may marry a carl, and her children will be born free. That happens to a lot of them. Some try to run. The ones who try, you don't see again. You don't ask Bjorn what happens to them. Bjorn handles things like that. There's a feast that night in the longhouse. The men drink mead until they can't stand. You drink less than the rest, because you're the herser. And the herser doesn't get drunk in front of his men. You drink enough, you eat the roasted pig. You sit at the high table next to Hakon, your jarl, an older man who's lost an eye and most of his teeth, and most of his sense of humor in 40 years of raiding. Hakon claps you on the back and tells you it was a good raid. And that next summer, you'll go further, he says the word Frankland. He says it the way other men say the word treasure. The men around the table laugh. You smile because you're supposed to smile. In the back of your head, you're thinking that further raids mean further risk, and that Bjorn is 51 and his shield arm is starting to fail, and that your 9-year-old will be 11 when next summer comes. And 11 isn't yet old enough to row, but is old enough to start asking questions. You lie awake that night beside your wife. She sleeps, you don't. You keep thinking about the eldest monk, you didn't kill him. He's alive somewhere in the gray country across the water. He'll go to another church. He'll tell other monks. The monks will write down what you did. They'll write that you're a devil. They'll write that you came from the sea like a wolf upon the fold. They'll get your name wrong, if they bother with your name at all, and they'll get the village name wrong, and they'll say there were 100 of you when there were 40. You know this because you've seen monks writing before. They don't understand you. They think you're a punishment from their god. You aren't. You're a man who needs silver. Because silver is how a herser keeps a crew, and a crew is how a herser keeps his land, and land is how a man feeds his children, through a winter that comes early in your country and stays long. The farms don't produce enough to feed 15 people on grain and meat alone. Rocky soil, thin pasture, a short summer. The sea is the answer. The sea has always been the answer. You sow blood, you reap silver. You bring it home and your children eat through the winter, and your wife wears a silver brooch at her throat. And your jarl gives you another summer. In the spring, you'll go again. Your boys will be a little older. Your wife will pretend, for the few weeks before you sail, that you aren't going. The freckled girl in the kitchen will be carrying a child by then. Your second cousins, because your second cousin took a liking to her at midwinter. And the child will be born in the household and grow up not as a thrall, but as a freed servant. And one day, when she's grown, she'll marry a young carl and have children of her own. And her grandchildren will be free Norsemen who tell stories in the longhouse about a grandmother who came from across the sea. They won't know your name. They won't need to. The story doesn't need it. You close your eyes. The wind is coming down the fjord. The longship is tied at the dock. The sea is waiting. The sea is always waiting. You sleep, eventually. In the morning, you wake before your wife, and you walk down to the harbor, and you stand at the prow of the longship and look out at the gray water and breathe in the salt of it. You'll be 40 before you stop doing this. You may not see 40. Half the men you grew up with didn't. Your own father didn't either. The ones who did, Hakon among them, are missing eyes and fingers and the use of their legs. The sea takes a price for the silver. It takes it in pieces over years, until there's nothing left to pay with. You walk back up the path to the longhouse. Your daughter's awake. She runs to you across the morning grass, with her hair loose and her feet bare, and you catch her and lift her and she laughs. You think for one moment that this is what the silver buys. Not the brooches, not the pots, not the horse in the stable. This, the girl in your arms, laughing the morning, quiet over the fjord. You hold her tighter than you mean to. She squirms. You set her down. She runs ahead of you, back to the longhouse, where her mother is already at the loom. You follow her in